yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Unmute, Doc.
You muted, Dr. Cavil.
Man, them early mornings, did I have a little too much fun after Texas University graduation yesterday? I guess I can start out just with that and say congratulations to all the graduates that have passed over the stage, if they would, and turn their tassel to the other side. Congratulations to all those graduates of the last couple of weeks. Want to make sure we get that knowledge. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Dr. Cavil is inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. I guess I'm half asleep, but I'm back now on assignment. Charles Bishop is still smiling. DJ Jones is smiling. I think he got him a coach. AD Drew is still looking for one coach at Tuskegee, but then they have their coach at FAMU, so he seems pretty good too.
We're not officially looking for a coach yet. We're just looking for an athletic director.
Oh yeah, same difference in some of these parts. They all the same. My fault. Thank you for the most part of the correction there. They're looking for AD. A couple of other ADs out there doing their thing. With that being said, good morning to everybody. Let's get it started, get it going. Welcome to episode 218 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab and Show and Podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetic to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, bringing you Professor Drew and Professor Jones. We are filming from our home studio, sending the signal live, as we always do, with the Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper. We're in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Today's episode of Inside the Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency LLC. THG Agency is the company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. We're also sponsored by slowburnwaco.com. Get your smoke. Charles has actually emptied out my stash. I'm still dealing with that. So
12 and 1, they emptied out everybody's stash.
Yeah, if you have one, Professor Drew or Professor Jones, when we hit Atlanta, you know, I appreciate it. You know, it's kind of tight on the brother right now. Every time I look up, Charles keeps like knocking on my door.
I know. I'm gonna develop emphysema with the way Jackson State went.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Cavil, you know, you got that cigar. I said, I just gave you one. He said, but it's a new day. If I'm still on cloud nine.
There you go.
There you go. This is getting hard. I was trying to be graceful. Hard. So we'll get into a little bit about that. I'd say it's officially Celebration Bowl week. You know, we touched on some things last week to kind of give you the administrative closing out, the SWAC football. We had the interview. A lot of people said it was really informative with the commissioner, Dr. Charles McCullough. Obviously, we brought in Executive Director John Grant of the Celebration Bowl. Seems like tickets are just about sold out. That was a Thursday, so it's probably tight on you. And so we'll see what that looks like going forward. This first part of the show, I did want to kind of shape out a couple of other things that's going on about these coaching hires. And then the second half of the show, the last two quarters, you'll see us really go in and start looking at the matchup. We'll look at some key players in that matchup, From a team perspective, we'll look at those kind of things. We got the HBCU football guru on here. We got inside access, at least from Jackson State's perspective, with Professor Bishop. And then we have all things to everybody, Professor Drew, that really gives a different twist on different things we may consider with betting lines and things of that nature. Although we do not sanction bets, that's on your own. Don't get us in case you bet up the house. It has nothing to do with that. That is on you, not inside HBCU Sports Lab, not Professor Jones, not Professor Drew, not Professor Bishop, certainly not Dr. Cavil, nor does it have anything to do with Black College Sports Network. All right, so we got that out there. Let me ask all of you, just in general, how's everybody going? Let me start with you, Professor Bishop. How you doing this morning?
Doing great. Like you said, we kick off Celebration Bowl week. Looking forward to getting over to Atlanta and really diving into the festivities around Celebration Bowl. If you have not gone, it is definitely an experience to get an opportunity to kind of immerse yourself into this good banter going back and forth between the SWAC and the MEAC. And it's a great networking opportunity. You get an opportunity to see all your media brethren in town for this game. So looking forward to it.
Let me go to you, Professor Drew. What's your thoughts this morning? How you doing?
Doing great. Had a chance yesterday. I actually went down to the Tuskegee Morehouse basketball game on yesterday, and it was a nail biter as Tuskegee held on at the buzzer to beat Morehouse. The final score was 76-73, but the score actually was 76-75 and a half because that ball went in, out, around the rim, and came back out on the three to tie the game for Morehouse. Thank God we were able to hold on. And just sidebar, speak Morehouse basketball, it was something different about it because for so many years, I'm so used to seeing Coach Grady Brewer on the sideline. And all of us who were there at the game was commenting, it's like, it's Tuskegee Morehouse. First of all, kids were out, so there was about 100 people there because there were no students on campus because finals were with. But still, it was just something different about the game, not seeing Grady's face on the sideline.
Great point. Continued prayers for him and his family. You know, such a legend in regards to particular that space for anybody that's been around Atlanta, Georgia, and the SIAC. So great point you made there. Let me go to you, BJ Jones. How you doing, Professor Jones, this morning?
Oh, man, doing good, man. We had high school championships here in the state of Georgia this weekend. So spent some time out, at the stadium and trying to do some networking with some other coaches and some.
I like that. There you go, BJ. There you go. But that's what it's about now. Make the move. We got you.
Yeah, man. So doing some networking with some other coaches, just talking. Was able to see a couple of college coaches in the building out recruiting, but overall, man, just some great football being played. And shout out to Jackson State alumnus, head coach at Cedar Grove, who won the state title on yesterday. So like Charles say, man, Jackson State winning all over the place, man. We got to do something about that.
Darryl Asbury at Southern Lab as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw in the Asbury. I know we couldn't get too far. Make sure we get his name in there, boy. Yeah, you're right. Jackson State just winning everywhere at everything. Talking about high schools, I'm intrigued about two matchups in the state of Texas. VJ Jones, coming from there, and all of y'all have recognized for television how big high school football in the state of Texas. They'll go fill up A&T next weekend with multiple games. Even though this is not directly, but it's indirectly if you go back to the history of high schools in the state of Texas or what this looks like. But you have what is now pretty much an African-American Black suburb. You have Duncanville High, which is a program that's coached by African-American. And it's one of the few at the 6A level. And he's been in the championship the last couple of years, hadn't been able to quite get it done. He will face North Shore. For the third time in 4 years, he'll get another shot. And if he can cut down the nets, everybody has seen the play from 2 years ago where it looked like it was a done deal, and you literally get this Hail Mary that North Shore gets done, falls in the hand. You've seen the empty face of the coach trying to hold together, but he has, and he's fought back, and we'll see if he can get it done. The other one is the South Oak Cliff, which is it has been an African-American neighborhood. Obviously, those are historians. The school itself is not what we would call one of the Prairie View Intercollegiate League schools from the back in the day, but it's now become a African-American enclave, and that's on the 5A level. And you don't get inner cities in the state of Texas that tend to make it to the state semifinals, even certainly to the finals, and they've dominated their way there. So they've taken down some of these large schools that are in the, would be these country county schools that have a lot of money, and he's taking down some of these more suburban schools. So it'll be fascinating. Can he get that done? Which is a statement itself. So great point. Let me get on a little bit here. Shout out some of the lab listeners while we got in here. They're already mixing up a lab. I love it. I love it. Michael Lee is in here. John H. Kimball, Ricky Burton, Noel Price is in here. Karen Griffin. They talking about celebration mode. Yeah, it's here. Mary Allen, G. Boom Holly's on. KJ Black is even checking us out. Shout out to KJ Black. We got you, KJ Black.
Coach Black, how you doing?
I still thanking him for that championship. Still thanking him for that championship back in 2009. Yeah, we got you. To you, we know. In fact, we need to schedule an interview and get you on the show and talk a little bit about what you're doing over there in the recruiting scene, offensive coordinator. So hit me up, KJ. Hit me a messenger. We'll get it done. To you.
Yes, KJ. I really want to know what's going on with FAM and recruiting. I'm very curious what's going on.
Obviously, you don't watch the OG Strike Zone, Charles.
I think Charles is trying to get you a little more back nose than the OG. I think y'all on the precipice. The way I heard that, I think he wants some background. He want to go straight to the coaching framework. I'm not sure if that's very good. Jamie O. Walker's on here called Edmund in terms of Alan Bozeman. Shout out to you all. I want to talk a little bit before we take this first break. Shout out to North Carolina A&T Golf enters accessory deal with TaylorMade from HBCU Game Day. Those relationships are big, courtesy of A.D. Earl Hilton III. Our agreement with TaylorMade is another giant step towards in the progression of women's and men's golf at North Carolina A&T. I'm super excited for Coach Richard Watkins and his golf program. Obviously, we know the story in terms of the golf as they start to make big statements. Also, NFL to host 6th annual Careers HBCU Forum for HBCU students. This is from MEACsports.com. This goes on during the Celebration Bowl week. I've partaken in the first couple of ones, and we sent students from Texas Southern. But a lot of these students get a chance to really get access to a lot of folks that are high throughout the organization, whether it's in the NFL operations office or NFL teams across the country. So great opportunity to try to put yourself in a position to take the next step. And they go directly to both players from each of the teams that are there, and they do some different sessions with them. So it's pretty big. It's a great opportunity for all to see with that being said. So just kind of wanted to jump in that a little bit, mix it up. Let's get in our first break. We'll come back and we'll get some round the horn and see what everybody's talking about in their perspective before we get into the second half of the show and get into the meat of this. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike is out on assignment, so we have Professor Drew and Professor Jones sitting in to make sure that we get you the latest and greatest on the HBCU sporting scene. We'll be right back after this break.
Let's get back to strolling instead of scrolling. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your fam.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports
Tell everybody they can follow their dreams.
Mobile on his little scooter. He had a little motorized action during the season as well. Trayvon Connolly on the scamper on 2nd and 10, and he picks up a first down.
And I'm going to go back to, we talked to our friends, Charles Bishop and Neely. They follow Jackson State football and having dinner with them. I mean, they said this team feels like nobody can score 3 times on them. 3 times. He didn't say if it was 3 field goals, 3 touchdowns. Prairie View has scored twice. Touchdown, field goal. That's how good this defense is. And, whoa, they are as good as advertised. 4th best in all of FCS, giving up just about 2 touchdowns a game. And right there was Rain. Gets the ball back.
The ruling on the field is a fumble. Recovered by the defense.
We talked about this Jackson State defense.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with the star of the show, Charles. And, these folks shouting you out and give insight on information. I'm not sure if it gets much better than that. That's pretty cool, Charles. How's that feel, man?
That was pretty cool. Yeah, I got a few texts after the game, like, man, I heard your name on the broadcast. So shout out to Jay and Tiff. We had a great opportunity to, kind of sit down with them on a Friday walkthrough and talk a little bit about Jackson State football, and of course, just spend a little bit of time with them over the course of the weekend. So appreciative of them shouting out me and Neely in terms of the work we're getting done on the pregame show.
Good point. I want to ask you this, Professor Drew, and I'm going to ask Professor Jones the same question. Do you see any other the HBCU programs, particularly maybe in the SWAC or even outside of that will maybe copy the framework of the pregame show and try to provide more insights of the program from that perspective? Or do you see this as a singular type of approach? Because it's amazing what Neely and Charles have been able to provide. But, usually, these things are kind of like copycat. Do you see it transitioning to other programs trying to provide that same level or maybe much more of insight level than what they currently do? Starting with you, Professor Drew, what are your thoughts?
First of all, before I get into that, I want to thanks Alex Hines for sending me that clip and clipping that for us and sending it to us over here at the Black College Sports Network. So,
shout out to Alex Hines.
Alex Hines, if there's anything you need to see on video for HBCU Sports, Alex Hines is the man. If he don't have it, it don't exist.
It don't exist.
HBCU Pro Sports Media member. Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But getting back to your question, Dr. Cavil, first of all, at Black College Sports Network, we've already had one, not quite the same level of access, but similar concept, the ONG Strike Zone, Florida A&M University. They don't have the access that Neely and Bishop have, but in their lane, they are doing something. We are doing something else similar at the Black College Sports Network, and Neely and Bishop came up with this idea back in the spring. I was there at the beginning when the concept was put together. It has evolved to a heck of a lot more than I thought it would be. I thought it would be just, okay, we just gonna talk about this, talk about that, get an occasional interview to I'm like, well, damn, every time I look up on my phone, I got another D pregame show video or a 30-second or a 2-minute clip. I would hope they would. Matter of fact, I'll even throw this out there. I've had my other alma mater contact me about coming up with something, not quite on the level of the pregame show, but with the coaches shows and the access, the player access and things like that. Look, these of them have unprecedented access.
Yes.
Most people, they get the outside the locker room, outside the coach's office. They get to sit in the coach's office. They get to sit in the meeting rooms. They get to
your
go
point, Drew. It was surprising. It looks like
plane.
they trying to call plays. They so involved. Did Charles just draw that up?
Yeah, they ride on the plane, they ride on the bus. You know, usually you don't access you get like that is if you're the SID. So right. You know, shout out to them. Shout out to Coach Prime for letting them have that access. Right. And we need more. We don't need another pregame show because that's them, but we need more access similar to whatever your fan base at your university is asking for. We need more shows like that geared to each of our 54 football fan bases and our 84 HBCU sports fan bases in general.
Well said. Well said. BJ Jones, you've been in this mix in terms of the coaching. You're actually doing coaching is just on the high school level, and who knows, you might be in a position soon to be ahead of yourself. So give us some of the frameworks, the challenges that historically maybe coaches in the past would have concern about having that much access, you know, answering you from a different perspective of, you can ask the first part of it, will it kind of copy through? We see a framework of that with Owen G. You may even say somewhat with the Jaguar Journal. It kind of does that for a while, but not the same level of access, if you would. 1876, sports and culture, they're trying to touch on it in a lot of ways, and they have access to a lot of players. But like you said, Drew said, nothing like Bishop and Neely. And when you talk about the fact they in there, like I said, I'm joking, but you know, it looks like they draw the play. You know, hey, you want to do this? Coach Prime probably look at him like, man, no, don't get too excited over here. TC Taylor probably looks crazy at him, be like,
man, shout out to both Charles Bishop and Neely. What you guys have done over the course of the year has been amazing, and I've enjoyed the updates. I've enjoyed the content. So, man, shout out to both of you guys, especially my boy Neely. You see what happened when you have noops in certain positions. You see what happened. But
I was waiting on that one.
Man, boy, you just messed it all up.
But man, all jokes aside, man, but I really love what those guys are doing. It's been innovative and it's been creative. And I think you don't have to be a Jackson State fan to enjoy it. And that's the biggest thing that these guys have been able to accomplish with is that, man, you go in and do it. And I would sincerely hope, and I was in talks with, you know, a few other guys involved in media with Southern University about, you know, doing something similar with Southern University. So, Charles, if you get a couple of calls during the off season to get your brain picked by me, that's what it's all about. Because we definitely want to, you know, definitely enhance the brands for all of our schools. Sure. You know, and I, you know, definitely want to see something like this done for Southern University. The pushback that you get as a coach, man, coaches are really private. You know, there's a reason that during, you know, summer camp, you know, after stretching and you get a little bit of special team, you know, coach kick everybody out, all media out. Coaches are real in particular about what gets out and how much access that you have. So shout out to Coach Prime for giving these guys that access, giving them that inside look, because that has also gone a long way.
Yeah, and let me add to that, Doc.
Please do, Joe.
The accolades, but I think you have a confluence of things that really came together. First and foremost, Coach Prime being innovative to want to allow a show like the pregame show inside access. But the number one thing is we have a rabid fan base. HBCU fans are rabid fans. And I think you have a situation there in Jackson where our Jackson State fan base was not getting fed Jackson State information as much as they wanted. And, you know, the school can only do so much. And I think we were able to find a very lane in there where we could continue to bring our Jackson State fan base as much Jackson State football information, as much Jackson State athletics information as they can handle. So very appreciative for having that lane within Jackson State athletics. A.D. Robinson for the access that he gives us. And then you have all of the athletic staff that really allows us to maneuver in there. But like I said, it's the innovation of Coach Prime in terms of taking a show like us. And then what we've been able to do from there. I think the straight out to Tiger's mouth, given that real-time access to players coming off the field in terms of what they're seeing, what they're looking at, and what exactly happened on the play. So it's been a labor of love, and shout out to my guy Neely. He does a tremendous job week in, week out, because the guy has an eye for stuff. He's a producer in waiting for somebody, because he has an eye for the action out there that is amazing. And sometimes when you go back and take a look at the edited works, like that's tremendous, and it feeds the fan base, and the fan base has been very appreciative. So thank you, not only Jackson State fan base, but thank you to Southwestern Athletic Conference fan base as well, because it's not just Jackson State fans that have complimented us on the show. So very appreciative of it.
All right, that's enough of the pregame show talk. Enough of Neely. Shout out to Neely and the Kappa outside, all the brothers out there. That's enough. Too much red going on. You see Neely in the red HBCU game day shirt. It was hard for me to make that shirt easy to Drew, you want to say something before we move forward?
Yeah, I was gonna say something. First of all, shout out to somebody else behind the scenes who a lot of people don't know about it. Chuck knows exactly what I'm talking about. Shout out to Alexis, who does a lot of the creative editing for the pregame show. Also, a lot of the stuff you see.
Great point. Yeah,
it's her work, and that child got some skills. I'm going.
Yeah, we got to shout out to Tyler. Appreciate you making sure.
Yeah, Neely, that's Neely's daughter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then number two, it's good that we're able to control our own narrative, because even when we're in major metro markets, we don't get the coverage we need. You're in Jackson, Mississippi, but when you turn on the Jackson local news, it's Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They get all the coverage, even though you have a major school right there in your city. And it's not just Jackson, Mississippi. Albany, Georgia has Albany State right there. But who do you see on there? And I'm in the Albany TV market. Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, and there's so many of them. So this is our way of controlling our narrative, not information out that the linear TV news does not get out for our universities.
Great point. Let's transition to that. Some of that you talked about, the innovativeness of the coaching. I'm all about innovation. I don't understand why we don't even teach classes at HBCUs more often than we do. Some of them have the programming. We developed it in our sports management program at the graduate level, particularly at the doctoral concentration of sports studies. We talk about innovation in sports. Yeah, I threw that in there. Yes, Texas Southern University is the only HBCU that offers a doctorate in concentration in sports studies. We also offer an executive doctoral degree in sport leadership and athletic administration. So if you want more information on that, hit me up. We're getting that going. Charles is actually in that program and took his first class this fall. His final paper was to write an abstract on either those that were live there at the game, because there's several students in the class, an abstract on the atmosphere, about 3 different areas they could write the abstract on in terms of the game, real game time, give you some understanding of how we take a deep dive in HBCU sports that nobody else does. Or for those other students that were not able to get there live, they did the abstract on the television broadcast apparatus of what they showcased for the SWAC championship game, just to give you some framework. That's our 20-minute plug for Texas Southern University and the sports management program, if you would. But with that being said, I want to transition into coaching hires. That's out there. Southern University announced on Monday that Eric Dooley is taking his talents from Prairie View to Southern University. So let's get everybody's thoughts on what that looks like. Big move for him. I think Southern, for most fans, while there may have been some question going into it, whether they wanted a bigger name or whatever, but I think for the most part, many fans seem to be happy. I'm going to start with you, BJ Jones, being intimately involved in that program. What are your thoughts in terms of the move?
Oh, man. For me, excited, happy. Eric Dooley is someone I know very closely. I always tell people, man, when you start talking about Eric Dooley, I usually, excuse myself from the room. Reason being, that connection that I have with Eric Dooley is personal. Eric Dooley is how I got to Southern University. Right. So I don't get to Southern University without Eric Dooley. And him seeing something on film was just like, hey, there's this kid that we need to take a look at. So Eric Dooley, man, his coaching, man, it speaks for itself. He's a master motivator. I've seen him take guys, and when you see him, you go, man, Dale Dooley was kind of tripping right here. What did he see? And then 2 weeks into camp, the kid is all world. And he was like, oh, man, there we go. Man, I think that, you know, it's a fit. And a lot of people may not understand that, but it's a fit. He understands the culture, been there, was there for 13 years, coached up under Pete Richardson. Has won titles at Southern, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Grambling. I was able to get Prairie View back into the championship game. He knows the landscape. He knows the school. He knows all the twists, the turns, the ins and outs, the politics. You have it. His learning curve, it wouldn't be as steep as anyone, you know, someone else's. And he knows the coaches. And Louisiana is a strange place. If the coaches don't trust you and don't know you, you're not getting kids out of Louisiana. He doesn't have that problem. So for myself and the guys who were former players at Southern University, this was huge. And this was a situation where you had former players who came by plane, car, and however to the press conference on Tuesday. So that lets you know how important it was to the Southern University family.
I like that you said the fit, and then I like the fact that you talked about the uniqueness of the cultural perspective of high school coaches. That is a unique thing to Texas. You know, one of the things I've heard around here is just how much influence high school coaches have on the success of a college university team, because they can dictate whether they send kids there or not in a lot of ways in terms of spinning in certain directions. And if you don't have that connection, you know, I don't want to get too far on this because we talk about HBCUs, but I want to really make the point here. People remember Mac Brown and what Texas had got to, because it was on hard times falling off. Seems like it's back on that. But all of a sudden it got this spike at UT when Coach Brown was over there. This is a time my brother played in there, and he transitioned from Makovic as the Coach Brown in terms of what he was doing there. But one of the things that I found out doing my research is trying to understand the uniqueness of the sporting landscape in Texas. Is one of the things he did that hit the home run that I heard that really ingratiated himself with Texas and the state is the fact that he immediately picked off about 3 or 4 high school coaches, legendary high school coaches, Dallas Carter, one out of Houston, and put them on his staff. And it opened up the floodgates for different type of coaches to feel very comfortable with Brown, that he believed in Texas high school football. And he pretty much got the pick of the litter for a long time. And you saw what it did with the program. So that's an example. But I wanted to transition and ask Professor Bishop this question in terms of fit. Sometimes, you know, the fact that Coach Prime was able to do it in Jackson State, the fit at the time and the support from the athletic director, VP of athletics, Ashley, was perfect. And so sometimes I don't think we really understand that the fit at a given time is extremely important, not just the capabilities of a coach or the name brand of a coach throughout the thing. Because if you don't have pieces of the puzzle, it's not going to work. I've always said this that I've learned, and then I'll turn it over because I'm kind of getting to a dissertation field here, is that the fact that organizations win championships. Coaches don't win championships. Coaches put the final pieces of the puzzle together. But if you have a great coach and there is not the same leadership at the administration, it doesn't fit. It's not going to work. You may get lucky and find a way to sneak it through. But generally speaking, you need organizations, presidents, chancellors on the same page with the athletic VP of athletics. You need a coach and his coaching staff on the same page. Obviously players, but you need the entire organization along with the alumni to put everything in place in terms of them believing, doing everything in their power for it to work. And if you miss those streams, it becomes harder and harder for that to work. Go ahead, Charles, your thoughts.
I think you touched on the organizational fit. When you take a look at from the top down currently at Jackson State, there is buy-in from president to the AD to Coach Prime. So organizationally, it is the reason why Jackson State has morphed into what they once were. back in the 90s, because you had that organizational fit from the president to the AD to the head coaches, and you see that throughout Jackson State athletics, and not just with Coach Prime, but Coach Tamika Reed, Coach Wayne Brent, volleyball coach, Coach Washington. There seems to be that championship sort of atmosphere currently at Jackson State. I can't say enough about Coach Dooley. He has won everywhere he's been. BJ, you touched on it. He is the right person for the right job. He, wanted to be at Southern. He mentioned that. But when you take a look at his time at Southern, he has been pedigree. Won at Arkansas Pine Bluff, won at Grambling, and now he's at Southern. You can't say enough about what he's been able to do in the SWAC, and he is a familiar pedigree coach, and I think it should work wonders for that Southern program. I'm going to hate going against him because that fan base with the right coaching in place is scary, to be quite honest with you. Southern is a place that I'm very respectful of the Southern program as a whole. And, when Jackson State and Southern get on, he throw everything out the window. I need that depth. So Coach Dooley coming over there, that's going to be a tough one.
Eddie Drew, Stephen Gaither, shout out to him. He puts in there, Mac Brown can recruit no matter where he goes, no doubt. But I guess my point is one of the reasons he can do that is his ability to understand the culture of the landscape. And if you don't put those pieces together in terms of understanding the culture, we've seen several coaches that basically could recruit anywhere and come into Texas and crash and burn because the relationships, they didn't understand the need about creating those relationships, authentic relationships out there. And we've seen that from Prairie View's perspective. People talk about the need of giving, assistant coaches a chance. Prairie View's done that. They just happen to be that these assistant coaches had previous stops and they decided to go back there. I mean, this goes all the way back to Northern, when Northern was the coach in waiting, a Southern graduate that did great things. And he built the talent level there, maintained it. There were some changes in athletic directors, I think, that helped the struggle in terms of him not being able to get over the limp. And then we brought in Willie Simmons, in terms of what he was able to do. Took the talent from Coach Northern and went 8-3 that first season with his acumen. But you're still talking about some of the recruit natures. I'm getting you inside the numbers at Prairie View. As you talk about Jackson State or Southern or FAMU, I can tell you about the space and the uniqueness of Texas that people not from around here don't know. One of the problems, even going back to Coach Henry Frazier, his first couple of years, he had to get players out of the state because people didn't trust him coming from outside of the state with their program, and the program was so down depressed along with losing streaks, nobody wanted to send players there. After he built some players and got to the point where people were saying, all right, he knows what he's doing, he opened up doors. And those coaches, Willie Simmons went to FAMU back home, essentially. You had Dooley, what he was able to do this past year. Still questions in terms of the recruiting routes for some people. Not saying it was right or wrong, but those were some significant questions that people had in terms of the fit. And now I think both of the coaches are going to be great coaches because, one, they're on their second coach. Everything they've learned at their first coaching stop from not being a head coach, now they can compartmentalize that and they have organizations that support them. Damn right they're going to be better coaches. That's just what happened. So that's the question that people talk about Prairie View is whether, you're going to bring in somebody through the thing. Does Prairie View have the ability now? Do they need everything going on? Do they need a coach with experience, or can they afford to take the framework they're going to bring up another assistant coach that has to learn on the job, no matter how good he is? So, Drew, before we take this final break, what are your thoughts in terms of that? Because we also want to get into the Grambling State hire, Hugh Jackson, which is uniquely different, but may be a great fit for Grambling State at this time, at this moment right here. And all these we'll see in 2, 3, 4 years, some of them maybe even next year, about how good of a fit it ultimately was in terms of measuring after the fact. But talk a little bit about Grambling State hiring Hugh Jackson, your thoughts on that, and you can also talk a little bit about Dooley as well.
Well, I'm kind of going to bring all the hirings under one umbrella. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eric Dooley is the first coach since Coach Prime was hired that does not have those direct NFL ties in the SWAC. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
What do you mean direct?
Well, you've got Eddie Robinson, NFL experience at Alabama State. You've got Hugh Jackson at Grambling. So Dooley cutting his roots at HBCU, coming from an HBCU to another. HBCU.
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah,
since Coach Prime has come in. Okay, I hate to say, but we're having a live experiment right here. Since Coach Prime changed the landscape just over a year ago, Southern is the first school to actually stay within the culture of HBCU and hire another HBCU experienced coach. Now let's see what Prairie View does. Does Prairie View do what they've done in the past and take that next hotshot assistant and allow him to cut his teeth at Prairie View, aka Willie Simmons and Eric Dooley? Or do they go with the model that everyone else has done and go get that NFL line coach? Because we've all heard the names that are out there for the Prairie View job. So, some are realistic, some are not, but we've all heard the names. So let's see how this plays out and what happens with this. And depending on what these two hires do, what Dooley is able to go over to Southern and do, successful, not successful, and then whoever the next coach at Prairie View is able to do, successful, not successful, along with Hugh Jackson and Eddie Robinson, it's going to lay the framework of what you see in the SWAC for the next 3 to 5 years, because we all know the SWAC is a copycat league.
Very cyclical, yeah.
Yeah, you certainly work. I like to use the word case study instead of experiment, but to your point, it is certainly a case study. And
case study was the word I was looking for.
Right, but that's what we're looking at in all these unique. But even when you talk about Eddie Robinson, while it has the NFL connection with him, he happens to be an alumni of Alabama State. So there's even uniqueness in the framework of how you talk about each of these hires from that connection. So it is going to be a fascinating case study. But also the uniqueness of the case study is these are all interactions, meaning these coaches face each other. And so it's not like they're independent of themselves and playing other teams outside of the SWAC in terms of, but they play each other. So you'll have some of these cross matches to see how they work. Let me let DJ Jones get in here and ask a question about Hugh Jackson and then Charles as well.
I think Drew hit a good point. I didn't think about it that way, but Coach Dooley's first coach is Deion Sanders that has come from internally from inside the conference, and it's going to be interesting to see what Prairie View does. I think that Prairie View with the facilities and the changes that they've made to the landscape of that program since Henry Frazier III, since he got there. Look at what Prairie View was and what they are now. I think that Prairie View is a very attractive job. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And then with Hugh Jackson, I think it's going to be interesting for several reasons. He did get a taste of the HBCU culture at Tennessee State, being the offensive coordinator there this past season. It's going to be interesting to see what he learned at Tennessee State and what he's going to apply at Grambling. And then also how many local guys he pulls to be on that staff. How many guys with Louisiana roots or ties to Grambling State University he's going to pull to be on that staff. So I think that's going to be an interesting doing, and how those two new coaches in the state of Louisiana, both at Southern and Grambling, how they duel it out against each other. Next couple of months.
The Bayou Classic should be one to watch for the next couple of years for sure. Charles, your any final thought that you want to put on that? Because I think it's fascinating. Also, when you look at the uniqueness situation in terms of how all those schools wrapped up in terms of the organization. You have Alabama State and Southern that have their own boards, while you have Grambling and Prairie View, which are part of system boards. How does that change the dynamics? You have 3 of those schools that are 2 of the 4 schools, including Prairie View, that are operated by VP of Athletics that are HBCU graduates themselves. How does that create a unique niche in terms of that, while Southern and Prairie View are not? You do have an HBCU president connected at Prairie View. In terms of the presidency, same with Alabama State and Grambling. So how much power does the president have on this? How much do they give the athletic director to kind of a VP of athletics, they're directed to make their own decisions. And again, that's why I say organizations. You can't just look at this in a vacuum without understanding all these political frameworks of how they play on an individual making the choice, and also looking under the hood, if you would, to see exactly who actually made the choice. And sometimes we won't find that for years to come. But Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. The landscape has changed with Coach Prime coming in, and now you're getting a different pool of candidate coming into HBCU football. But let me make this point right here, Dr. Cavil, because I hope this narrative starts to become destroyed. There are a lot of good coaches in the HBCU stratosphere that can absolutely coach. So that's why this case study is going to be fascinating. Eric Dooley is going to be, I think, a tremendous hire, I think, for Southern. We talk about organizational fit, but there are so many coaches within this HBCU stratosphere that can flat out coach. So there are worthy candidates that will probably on these short lists, be it at Grambling, Southern, Prairie View, or wherever they might be. I still encourage you to continue to take a look at them, because
they're offensive coach.
They're that damn
good.
Exactly.
You got Cedric Thomas over there. That was previously
Cedric Thornton at all points. You have so many.
What about our Division II coaches?
Yeah, Damon Rowe,
David Wilson,
Wilson,
Reginald Ruffin. I mean, and I think some of these. I hate to say they're taking jobs, but a lot of these people are forgetting about these coaches at the Division II level who've cut their teeth at the Division II level and have been successful at the Division II and in AIA levels. Why am I drawing back? But guy,
I wanted to say this though before we get to that, because we got to get in this last break. It's cyclical. I remember, and I can walk you through this process. Sure. Where there was a time, you go back to Pete Richardson, that kind of started that phase from what I can remember, or at least when I started following it. That was a Division II coach that came up to the HBCU ranks, won at that level, and it came up. We named Frazier. Doug Williams even had it started Morehouse. The previous coach that was Alabama A&M came from them. Comedy from Tuskegee. We've seen that. So it's cyclical. Then it moved out where everybody was getting these great offensive coordinators. That went through a phase. Then you came out and you were getting these position coaches from the Power Five. That went through a phase. And so it will go through a phase. So if you study history, you'll find out that there will be a phase and it will go through. But again, I want you all to remember that this does not happen in a vacuum. You have to understand that these coaches are not just being pounced and picked on. There are athletic directors and VPs that are answering to president. Some of them are answering to very strong alumni organizations. Some of them are answering to state-selected board of regents that have their personal agendas. And all these are factors. So we look at this as if AD singly is making that position. And it's just as of late where I started seeing ADs don't even have to do committees. You have to remember there was a time in the conference where everybody had to have a committee with everybody and their mama on the committee. Didn't know what the hell they were talking about anyway, and then you somehow got a coach. So let's take a deeper dive and understand what Professor Jones said about fit, what Charles said about time and space, what Drew said about understanding the nature of the coaching position itself. All those things are part of what's going on, and we'll see. Ultimately, the great thing about sports is we'll get a measuring point. At some point, we'll get a measuring point.
W's and L's.
Yep, and we'll be able to say very clearly, did this decision make sense? Let's take this last break. We'll be back, and we'll get into Celebration Bowl. Enough of that. Wanted to make sure we got into that. I think a lot of people were interested in trying to figure out, this coaching circle, which is good because there's a lot of hunger, which is what you need when you talk about the interests of HBCU sports. Is appreciated. Coach Sewell, defensive coordinator of Bowie State, made a great point that all his coaching staff at Bowie State are actually HBCUs and Bowie State graduates, and they went all the way to the
semifinal,
finals, if you would.
Quarterfinals.
The regional finals in terms of the best history that's ever done. And they don't even have full scholarships. So imagine what happens when you put somebody in the right space that cares, understands, and imagine if they even got more commitment, what they can get done. All right, we'll be right back after this break.
It's the show where we take you inside the game before the game begins. It's the pregame. With your host, Charles Bishop and Neely. So get ready, because we pregame harder than the other show's party. It's the pregame.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
I want you to get the vaccine because I want you to be safe.
I don't want you to be a patient I take care of in the hospital. That's what I'm scared of. Can I hug you?
Yeah. Love you. Love you too.
You see, Head & Shoulders has scalp shield technology.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're going to go in to start this week in terms of Celebration Bowl and ask about the matchup. I did have a question out there. I'd be obliged to make sure I answer, but some of those coaches, make sure we don't leave them out. We have Quentin Morgan at Langston, another hot coach. You see him making moves, whether it's at another Division II HBCU school or at a Division I FCS. And then you have Vincent Dancy, that is a hot name out there, but it looks like in a lot of ways, Valley understands the assignment. They understand what they have, and they're trying to keep him in. So it also depends on what positions are open at that time to do it. There's a question out here by T. Foster. Did PV not want to pay him in terms of Coach Dooley? I can unequivocally put that out there. There was a contract on the table. In my opinion, it came to him late. But it was actually higher than what he's getting paid at Southern. I think we have to understand there comes situations, sometimes people just want to go home and they think that's a better fit. And I think that's what happened here. I think you got to remember, he came in under a different athletic director, Ashley Robinson. Yeah. So oftentimes when you don't have somebody that hired you that you feel that gives you a certain level of support, it's easier for you to say, hey, let me go where people seem to, in totality or more highly, really have my interest in supporting me at a level that I think is necessary to get it done. Remember, I started my conversation and said that it's organizations that win championship. Everybody has to be in. And if for whatever reason, if everybody's not quite in, and they may have their reasons of why they're not in, it doesn't quite work. And so those are the things that you need to understand. But I can tell you that, yes, he had an offer Prairie View contractually that went to the agent. It was actually a total package higher than the package that he received at Southern. But he wanted to go home. Congratulations to Dooley and Southern. Other than when they played Prairie View or Texas Southern, I wish him the best. And the only reason I don't wish him the best on those two skins because obviously I have a bone in the fight. I want to win myself. Other than that, I hope it's a great game when it comes to other those things. But he's treated me fairly. We've interviewed, we talked. I went through the process. I talked to him weekly. I knew just about all the insight. I knew really 4 months where this was ultimately going. I knew up to the month and the day what was going on. So it wasn't a surprise to me. I knew it all this thing, but it was a relationship. So I wasn't going to put it out there, and I helped as much as I could. Hell, I knew the same thing about Willis Simmons. I have those relationships out there, and that's what you want to develop. If you're talking about from an alumni and y'all want to get involved with these programs, you need to show up, show out, and show authentic relationships with coaches such that you're in a position to help control the narrative. Enough of that. Celebration Bowl. BJ Jones, starting with you. South Carolina State. Yeah, they're just 6-5. Coming up against Jackson State, that is 11-1, playing some good football. What are your thoughts generally in this matchup? We'll go into details a little later. But what are your thoughts in terms of overall process of this matchup?
South Carolina State they got Goliath. We've seen South Carolina State face off against a couple of SWAC teams this year. They did beat Bethune-Cookman, got out of Bethune, beat Bethune-Cookman by the skin of their teeth. Was a blowout. Bethune-Cookman come back, but lose to Alabama A&M, lose to FAMU. I think they have Goliath. I think they have some opportunities offensively. Defensively, when they're on. But they're not on defensively all the time. The Kobe Durant at cornerback is one of the best corners in the country. You'll probably see him in the Senior Bowl, see him play on Sundays. He has to have a big game, and that front seven has to have a big game in order for them to have a shot to beat Jackson State.
Yes, Drew, your thoughts on this? You get into that offensive line play. We've seen some trouble with Jackson State offensive line play different parts of the years, but their defense is just so talented that it hadn't really mattered about offensive. And credit to Shedeur Sanders, the freshman, when he needs to make a play, he makes a play to put enough points on the board where the defense just shuts it down. Is that going to be the same formula for this game, or is there something that South Carolina can find a way to do to find a way to come out of it with the victory? Because as BJ Jones said, in a lot of ways, most people are saying that this is Jackson State's game to lose. In fact, they should probably really win it going away.
Number one, what's the health of the South Carolina State quarterback? We know he was banged up at the end of the regular season. So what is his status health-wise? He's going to play, but how healthy will he be and how sharp will he be is question number one.
Great point.
Question number two. Let's get into the old debate: rest versus rust. South Carolina State, 4 weeks off before this game. Definitely time to heal what you need in football. But there's also 4 weeks to lose your sharpness. Whereas Jackson State is basically had a bye week before the SWAC championship game. Now they've got another bye week before the Celebration Bowl. Jackson State should be sharper. But once again, rest versus rust. 3 of the 4 times this has happened, rest has prevailed in the Celebration Bowl with Central and A&T winning the Celebration Bowl. And let's everybody remember this. Both teams are actually coming into this game undefeated in their conference. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people forget, despite South Carolina State's 6-5 record, they did sweep through the MEAC. Just like Jackson State, they had some games in which they struggled. They had some games in which they blew people out. But against their competition at their level, they were undefeated. So Jackson State gonna hit, South Carolina State will hit Jackson State in the mouth. We know that's Buddy Spew MO. That's how he plays ball. Can Jackson State take that punch? That's the question that needs to be asked.
Charles, I know your perspective. You always look opponents squarely in the eye. You don't want to look past anybody. Coach Prime has talked that up, so you picked up that mantra. I would say that you've always been like that ever since we've been on the show. You've always squarely had respect for your opponent. But Jackson State is 2-0 after a week off. You put that out here a couple of times of what they tend to do just with 1 week. But as Professor Drew talked about, South Carolina State has 4 or 5 weeks off. My understanding, the quarterback will play, as you said, that it wasn't an injury that would put him out for the rest of the season. He just was nicked up a little bit. But like you said, Drew, what does that really mean in totality? Winning, 5 of the last 6 games, including 5-0 in conference rates. I think that's a great point you make there. Charles, what are your thoughts on this matchup from that perspective of what will be a capacity crowd in terms of ticket sales, which is slightly different what we've seen over the last couple of years?
I think first thing that jumps out at me was South Carolina State battle tested. AD, you mentioned they swept their MEAC play, but they also have opponents in the SWAC East, Alabama A&M, FAMU, and Bethune-Cookman. Then they have 2 FBS opponents, Clemson and New Mexico State, that they play. So very battle-tested team. The other thing that jumped out at me, offensive line. They've only given up 17 sacks thus far in the season. And when you talk about a battle-tested team that's only given up 17 sacks, that jumped out at me. Interestingly enough, 6 out of those 17 came against Florida A&M. Isaiah Land had a huge game against them. He had 5 sacks against South Carolina State. So those are the 2 things that really jumped out at me. But there are a lot of individual matchups that I'm going to be really curious about. We've talked about Shaq Davis. He's a man amongst boys going up against this Jackson State secondary. We talked about the front 7. Some of the players that, you really kind of start taking a look at. Those linebackers, they're all MEAC. Chad Gilchrist, B.J. Davis, the defensive lineman up front, Patrick Godbolt and Octavian Mentor. Tremendous. And then you have DBs that I think match up pretty well with Jackson State, and Jacoby Durant and Zafir Kelly. Both of them have 3 interceptions on the season. So I think you got a lot of very individual matchups that are going to be really interesting to see who's going to win those. But those were the immediate 2 things that jumped out at me. The offensive line play, we always talk about offensive line play when we're talking about the MEAC, defensive line play as well. And we talk, old axiom, it's one in the trenches. So the question becomes, has South Carolina State seen a defense like Jackson State? And I would make an argument that they sort of saw that when they played Florida A&M.
Yeah, great point. They did get to see it live in action, FAMU, on the road there. Sticking with you, Charles, is there any particular part of the game, section, if you would, breaking it down, that you're wanting to keep your eyes on in terms of this matchup?
Special teams. I think, and I've said this on more than one occasion, I think tactically Southern did the best job of kicking away from Zay Bolden, Jackson State's kick returner, and Warren Newman, the punt returner. Interestingly enough, South Carolina State, their field goal kicker, he's 10 of 11 thus far on the year. So that third rail, the special teams, is going to be, I think, a huge one in this game. And then third down stops. I think Jackson State is one of the best in the nation at getting you off the field. I think they're stopping opponents to 27% is the number that comes immediately to mind without taking a look at it. But I think those are the things that are just little small elements that we have to kind of take a look at and see how that plays out during the course of the game.
I like that. Professor Drew, what are your thoughts? Any particular part of the game that you want to really focus in and keep your eyes in, and why?
Run game. Jackson State, top rated rush defense probably in the nation, definitely in HBCU football. Buddy Pugh. We've all heard the phrase about Buddy Pugh. We've known him not to pass anywhere, even on the interstate in the fast lane. So you got the immovable object versus the irresistible force. Can South Carolina State run the ball effectively against Jackson State's run defense? If they can, they shorten the game. South Carolina State needs to shorten the game so that in the 4th quarter, they're in the game, they're within the score. Because we know if South Carolina State gets up, if Jackson State gets up on you, especially by more than one score, it's ball game. South Carolina State will have to shorten the game, stay within the score, and give themselves an opportunity in the 4th quarter if they are going to win this game. That's what's going to be the key factor to me. Can South Carolina State run against Jackson State? Doesn't matter if Jackson State can run against South Carolina State. Jackson State has many different ways to get the ball up and down the field. South Carolina State is going to have to control the clock, though, and win the time of possession battle.
I like that. Going to you, Professor Jones, to close it out. What part of the game that you're going to have your focus on? What are you looking at?
Man, the biggest thing is going to be up front. And I'm talking about on the offensive line, the defensive line for both teams. On the offensive line, can Jackson State establish the run? It's going to be very important, because if you can't establish the run, South Carolina State will zone blitz a lot to kind of confuse Shedeur Sanders to kind of get to him. Can you set up the run, keep Shedeur Sanders upright so he can find those open receivers? Speaking of open receivers, I think that this may be a game for Warren Newman in the slot. I think that I think he can have a big game. I think this could be his game. Jacoby Durant's gonna be on the outside. You'll probably see him follow Weidman or follow Corbin. So I think that on the inside is where you're going to have some opportunities. This game is going to be tailor-made for those gentlemen. And then for South Carolina State offensively, South Carolina State for the season, the average touchdown drive is 6 minutes, 34 seconds. That's one of the highest in the MEAC. They're all about ball control. Can they control the upfront to establish the run so they don't have to just drop back and pass to create offense? And the quarterback using your feet to extend plays and also using those feet to extend drives. That's going to be critical against this Jackson State defense. Are they able to do those things? If they're able to do this, this game is going to be a lot closer than people want it to be, particularly on the Jackson State side of the football. So I think those are one of the things that I'm going to be looking at. If Jackson State can do the things that they've done all year, go walk out of that thing with one of these. That's a national championship ring, Black College national championship ring. So if they can do that, man, they'll get it done. So that's what I'm going to be looking at, particularly up front for both of these football teams.
Hey, BJ Jones, I know you're trying to sneak that up there. Can you put that right back up there? You're gonna look for one of those. I like that. Charles, if they get it done, you in line to get a ring? Your name going on the paper? Do you get a ring? You gonna be trying to come up here asking for more songs with the pinky ring?
Hey, you better believe it.
They're sparkly, Charles. They're sparkly.
That'll do it for us. Tune in Tuesday and Thursdays. We take even more deeper dive. Like I said, we'll do live shows from Atlanta. Particularly Thursday, we'll do a press row show on Friday, and then we'll close things out on Sunday. So stick with us. We'll have an update. We might have a change in the time slot on Sunday, so we'll get that information out to you a little early. But be with us this week as we're going to take you deep into the numbers. We'll have guests like this that really can provide you different ways that you can look at this game from different perspectives. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends or colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Coming in as our visiting professors, Professor A.D. Drew and Professor B.J. Jones, HBCU football guru, giving you information. Look for B.J. Jones, you on tonight. You bringing it to the people tonight.
Yes, sir.
A.D. Drew, Brian, and Drew, are y'all coming on bringing the light to everybody this evening?
That's the plan. We're going to talk about this 11.5-point Jackson State favorite.
I love it. Yeah.
Over under 41.5.
Put your money on it. Put your money on it. Put your money where your mouth is. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. News Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock, Sunday at 9. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DRKENYATTA CAVIL. That's DRKENYATTA CAVIL. Download the app at MyJBN, MyBCSN, so you can get all your latest in the news. You know, the pregame show, as Drew talked about earlier, they're going to be dropping it all week, little dimes and nuggets. So keep up with them. As Professor Bishop, no telling what he might sneak out this week. We'll keep our eyes on it. Dream big and continue to move forward. All the shows, ONG, I'm sure they in there talking about the recruiting. So Charles might have one eye on there trying to figure out what they're talking about down there in Tallahassee as well. Watch him. Because I'm going to have my eyes over there in Louisiana. One pointing down there in terms of Baton Rouge.
Just go straight down I-10, Doc.
And yeah, the other one over there in the corner watching see what they doing up north in Grambling Land. And also, you know, I'm right there in Third Ward, so you always got the eyes in terms of seeing what's going on in those areas, whether it's PV or Texas Southern. With that being said, let's get out of here. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
Drew.
Lecture.
Jones.
Dismissed.
We'll holler.
We'll holler.